University of London, and I have the pleasure to chair this session. As you know, Karen moved her session to yesterday, so we only have 2 presentations in this slot, and hopefully that will mean that we have more time for discussion and comments. I would like, as a native English speaker, I would like to encourage non-native English speakers to please ask questions and comments. I kind of imagine what it would be like for me to try and do that in German. And I understand why it's difficult, but it really is important that we try to come together, even if we can't all speak Esperanto. We speak some version of Lolo, so that should help. Let me begin by introducing Professor Chronis Kynigos, who's been working in the field of programming and mathematics for at least 20 and 25 years. I'm sorry, Chronis, it must be that long. He's Professor of Learning and Technology at the University of Athens, and he's the Director of the Learning and Instruction, what's it called? Learning and Technology Lab in that university. I'm going to ask him to speak for about half an hour, which will give us 10 or 15 minutes for discussion afterwards. Okay, Chronis, over to you.
Okay. So, thanks. Towards half an hour, start reading. The gist. So let me start by trying to hook up with the discussions that happened yesterday at the panel. Yesterday we were discussing issues like technocentrism, Karen's talk, issues like the differences and the tensions between instructionism and constructionism. Points were made by Ivan, I think, but, and also by others, that constructionist tools often get used in instructionist ways, and that there are many tools that were generated or conceived or used many years ago with an instructionist character or culture or beginning in mind, or an informationist beginning in mind, like books. Ivan said the word, if I remember right, that books are hardly or not very often constructionist in themselves. And how could they be when they were first started to be used? I don't know how many thousands of years ago. Books were just a medium to keep information and maintain it from generation to generation. So we have this inheritance that the book is a medium where there is a narrative, there is an author, there are predefined roles, there is a reader, it has information. The information may be inspiring, may lead to creativity or constructionism after reading the book or as a result of reading the book. But reading the book in itself it's very difficult to think that it's a constructive activity. And a community like this would say, well, why would it be our business to go into affordances towards digital technologies that are not about constructionism, and consider whether there should be or how there could be a constructionist element in these kinds of technologies? Well, this is a little bit where I come from, not only as a European citizen, but also from the Educational Technology Lab in Greece, where it's not that easy to get money for my own group to do the research we would like. We are placed in big conglomerations or consortia with other organizations. We are engaged in objectives that are much larger than the single thing that we carry. And we have a culture where there's a lot of interchanges and a lot of integrations, not only cultural, but also from the point of view of research and from the point of view of strategy. So my presentation is kind of the inverse idea to what we were discussing yesterday. Constructionist media, social media around it, generating community communities that are engaged in constructionist ideas and are around constructionist cultures that are emerging. We are discussing the idea today where we have cultures that are not about constructionism. They have much broader views, they have much broader perspectives about education, about learning, about educational management. And we are discussing the idea of infusing constructionist elements in those cultures. So we are addressing a much larger number of people. Maybe they're not directly interested in constructionism, but they're not necessarily opposed to it. And we're thinking about whether it's useful or whether it's an interesting enterprise to try and have constructionism as a presence in those cultures. The two large initiatives that we were influenced by in those 25 years that Richard talked about was, first of all, a very large network of excellence in Europe, which was funded by the European community. By large, I mean around 90 universities working together, more than 1,500 researchers, members of staff, many postdocs, research students, etc. And the idea was to explore the future of learning with digital technologies and to address the issue that we live in a fragmented world and that around this idea come people that have many diverse expertise, diverse perspectives, and they bring new things, and they all lie in a fragmented field, landscape of knowledge, and nobody can make a synthesis between it or understand what is the synthetic knowledge which is growing around the field. I have three names here, Nicola Balashev, Barbara Washington, and Richard Noss, who were part of the group that started this consortium and generated the beginning of the ideas. There were many others, of course, as you can imagine. And it's still going on with a different name, Telearch. It's created a community which is moving and which is focusing on different issues. But always the idea there is to integrate diverse views on educational technologies, both from a strategic point of view and from an academic point of view. And the second is that almost in parallel, there was a group of researchers in the math education community now, nothing to do with technology or programming or anything like that, that started to notice that in math education, we live in a fragmented world where there are different theoretical constructs emerging from the context from which they were designed and conceived, but it's very difficult to really make them operational when you are living somewhere else. And there is polysemy, there's different words used for similar meanings, not all the time. And there's been a long-term effort to try and create methods with which we can make syntheses and integrate these perspectives from an academic point of view. Now, in my lab, we've been working in many projects, as Richard said, but some of them have been R&D projects, research and development, in the European context, but we've also been lucky enough to live in a country where the Ministry of Education often asks or employs academic people to help them with large-scale initiatives. So we've been engaged in the problematics of making the knowledge that's emerging from the academic sector, making it interesting and proliferable to large-scale communities, very often under extreme pressure because the ministry means business. They want their big initiatives and the projects to happen, and they're not patient enough to wait for proper study and proper procedures. We've also been engaged in developing technology. I'm not going to go into that, and also spent thousands of hours in classrooms and with teachers in teacher education initiatives. Now, with respect to infusing constructionism, we've done this before. Many years ago, I was interested when I was in England doing my studies in logo programming, of course, doing mathematics through turtle geometry, but also with the emergence of Geometry Sketchpad and Cabri and dynamic manipulation media for mathematics education. I was interested in merging these two affordances because both of them were very interesting to me as a math educator And that's how Turtle Worlds came up. It's a piece of software that works and has been interesting, although it's a very simple idea, not very much programming behind it to develop it. It's changed quite a lot, the sense of how we do mathematics with turtle geometry. I'll be showing you a couple of things about that. There was constructionism in software for very young kids to do cartography with GPS and walkie-talkies and getting a sense of orientation and space. We merged into the computer science field when component computing was in fashion, and that's how we developed eSlate and its authoring capabilities. We still use eSlate now with teachers, and many teachers who feel that it's not part of their role to design and develop things, and would probably end their careers feeling that. With eSlate, they get a sense that they can create something for their students, even though it's not so much programming, there's not so much deep constructionism in there, but they can quickly get to creating things that are technically complicated and interesting for others to use. We've also engaged in the sense of CSL, the CSL community, joining up, hooking up microworlds in collaborative learning situations where the objective was learning how to learn together. And what the students were learning were mathematical microworlds in the Metaphora project. Also in relation to integrations of theoretical frameworks and constructs in a project titled GreenMath a few years ago with Michel Artigue as leader. And also with the Ministry of Education in their new initiative with a digital school, where with a wonderful group of around 30 mathematics teachers, we developed a large number, 1,750 widgets that we linked onto the curriculum books. So now it changes the sense of a curriculum, math curriculum book, because there's always a link to a micro-experiment in mathematics. It changes the sense of what it means to read about mathematics and to do mathematics. And this is our agenda. So our last venture is to go in even deeper into a culture and a technology that originally had very, very little, if nothing, to do with constructionism, and which is very old. Reading books is a heritage we have that has very many hardwired assumptions about how to use a medium and what it means to be a reader. So we want to see what happens now that we have e-books, and these e-books are starting to become interactive. We have the iBook, we have Cabrilog, and the emphasis is on interactivity and not on constructionism. So the interactive book is not a constructionist book. It's a book where you can press a button and see a video, or you can see a little model or a little experiment and fiddle with the experiment, but you can't change the book. You can't change the experiment. You can't get into the video and edit the video. That's not how the book is written about. So the kind of questions we have, and by the way, this is a talk I'm giving, I think, for the first time, about something which is not mature. We don't have technology already running, although we do have some technology running, and I'll show you today with my colleagues. It's ideas that are just now starting to come up and emerge. So I'm using this talk to initiate a discussion around these issues. It's not something that I'm carrying and I'm bringing as a year's experience with this kind of venture. So what is, how does reading change when you have imagine a constructionist book, which is a normal book, but wherever it's necessary or wherever it makes sense, there is some little widget which is live and which allows you to change it. How does the text change? How do you address the reader who is not a reader anymore? They are something else. They are somebody who will read your text and will do something to the widgets and therefore create their own product. And maybe you'll never know what they will create. Or they may show it to someone else who may create something else out of it. So how do you build a story? How do you build a narrative what is a narrative with a constructionist element in it? And what role can constructionist elements or widget instances, as we call them, play in the book culture, in the e-book culture? How can the author of such a book inspire creativity? How does the meaning of book change in general? The work we're doing is in the framework of a European project we started about a year ago. We call it MC Square. M stands for mathematical, C for creativity. And why do we have the word square? It's because we are focusing on design, on the creativity in designing C-book units. Because we think that this is something which we do not take for granted. We don't want to design and write, as Cynthia said yesterday, use this technology to produce things that we could produce without the technology itself. We don't want to write old-style books that just have some total geometry exercises in them. We want to rethink what the book is. The second part of the MC Square, the second part of the square, is about creative mathematical thinking itself. How can you generate it through this kind of medium? So the project is about developing technologies to inspire creativity in educational design. We have 9 partners, organizations from Europe, and 2 associated partners. We're developing the C-book. It's the creative book for mathematical learning. And today, for the first time, I can show you some glimpses of the book itself and some productions that we've done. We've never done this before. It will probably not work and crash, but maybe it won't. So the partner organizations, we are very, very pleased and honored to be working with the University of Utrecht, who has a long history of building infrastructures for mathematics education, a large number of athletes. They've been used by millions of people all over Europe. We have Peter Boone, who's part of the team in Utrecht, and we are basing the technologies we are developing on their expertise and their experiences to a great extent. We have the London Knowledge Lab, who have experience in data analytics. I'll show you how that comes into the picture. University of Barcelona, University of Lyon, with Luc Trouche and their ideas on teacher education and the way that teachers develop by developing documents and developing materials. And we have Martin Luther University from Germany, where Ulrich Kortenkamp is the guy who developed Cinderella. So it's one of the widgets that we are putting in our e-book. And our associate partners are the Educational Technology Lab and the University of Southampton. So the C-book, what is it? Well, what's different from an interactive book is that it can contain any kind of widget instance coming from any piece of software, from any widget factory. If you think of Scratch as a widget factory, and you think of Scratch microworks or productions as widget instances. And you can imagine a book that has NetLogo instances, Scratch instances, eSlate instances, and it doesn't matter. They can come from everywhere. So when you build the narrative, you're free from which software makes sense to use in relation to the story you're building. Secondly, it supports collaborative learning. We have a special tool that we've built to help creativity in the designers. We don't have single individual designers, we have groups of designers. We have 1 more minute or something. We also have the element, exactly because when you design a constructionist book, you don't know what the reader will do with the book. It will come into something else. So you need some information on what people do with something that you design and you write. And it would be nice for authors to be able to have a say on what type of information they want. So we're building, with the help of Manolis Mavridis and Irini back there, an element in the C-book where the designers would be able to decide and define what kind of analytics they want for their own particular C-book unit. each time. Now, how do you evaluate such a thing? We've got 3 years to develop a technology, and we're supposed to evaluate technology that can't be developed yet. This is the European language and culture. It works. We thought that it's not possible to evaluate it by just getting some clever people designing new books and telling us what the author is. The only way for these technologies, I mean, remember when we got word processors, and at the beginning they were used exactly like typewriters. What made word processors start to be used for people to develop the way they express themselves? A lot of communities, a lot of community work, a lot of individual people, a lot of cultures, a lot of exchanges, and many years. And inevitably we are in a situation now with respect to time where it's going to be in the future that we will see how the C-book units will develop. We're not going to solve the question in 3 years, but a way to jump us and to get us thinking about what the issues are is to generate what Fisher calls a socio-technical environment, in a community that works with technologies, but they work for joint ventures to develop things together. And to get that community to encourage and inspire that community to want to think creatively, to develop things creatively, to challenge themselves, to think outside the box, to think in lateral ways, etc. So that's why we use the term of community of interest and not community of practice. Community of interest is Fisher's terminology, again, from the University of Colorado. The community of interest is a community made up of members that come from different communities of practice, i.e. people that have different kinds of expertise. And they get together precisely because they have a joint venture, a joint interest. But they're not the same. They need to develop communicational language, they need to start regurgitating and taking out things that they feel are for granted because they come from tight communities, and to express themselves and explain themselves. And in that process, issues emerge about the objective itself that would not have emerged otherwise. So we're using communities of interest as enhancers of social creativity in thinking about developing C-book units. And with respect to integrations, our theoretical frameworks we found 2 of them that are particularly useful: documentational genesis and boundary objects, the use of boundary objects. One of the frameworks comes from the French school, within math education, but more widely. It's about perceiving teachers and the development of teachers as designers of materials and media for students, but as eternal designers. It's part of their DNA. It's part of what teachers do. It's the way that they think. Versioning of different materials is the way that they engage and discuss and plan for educational activities, etc. And with respect to boundary objects, it's a term that Celia and Richard were a great part of bringing it from somewhere which for math education or for educational technology was very obscure, from Griesmeyer, which I probably spelled wrong here, bringing it to the world of constructionism and math education. It's the idea where you build an artifact, or there is an artifact, and you have people from different communities discussing and changing the artifact and expressing ideas and crossing boundaries from one community to the other, understanding how the other perceives the artifact and gaining knowledge and learning from that process. With respect to creative mathematical thinking, some first ideas, starting points, although we want our communities of interest themselves to decide and define what they think creative mathematical thinking with a C-book unit is. They come from Vygotsky, they come from constructionist community, in which is model and Edith's ideas about lateral thinking and playfulness and humor. They come from collaborative learning, collaborative creativity. We're interested in the ways in which students adopt and engage in creative thinking while being in groups or in collectives who work together. Also creativity in the workplace, techno-mathematical literacies, ideas by Richard and Celia. A few things about the book itself. The collaborative designs, we've developed a tool which is hooked onto the C-book. So any of these postings can have attachments with it, and the attachments can be versions of the C-book. So it's a very live thing that is used by our community. There's a toggle button between the forum view and the mind map view. Now you're looking at the mind map view. And the kind of characterizations or metadata of the postings that people do are built so that they encourage creativity. So you can either put something which is an alternative, or it contributes to an idea, or it objects. So, and you have to think which of these three every time. So it's kind of, you know, helping the culture for people to be kind of disputational and objectional, but also creative in that kind of way. I'll show you a live example. And okay, so now let's have a glimpse at the book. So this is, we're at about the first year. We're building technologies which are not ready yet, but we're getting a sense of what it means to have the book. We have 8 communities of interest in our project, 4 communities of interest, sorry. They've already developed 8 C-book units. This is one of them. The title is Eva's Windmills. And I just wanted to read a little bit, see the kind of tempo and the kind of text. Have you ever seen a windmill, even in a picture? Eva took some vacation in Greece with her parents, and in the island she visited, she noticed that there were many traditional windmills. However, most of them were out of use and their sails were missing. Isn't that a pity, she asked herself, and immediately decided to design new sails for the windmills. Now, designing the sails, there's a little turtle geometry program here from Turtle Worlds. You remember we said about integrating dynamic manipulation and turtle geometry. So what I can do is I can see how my construction evolves as I manipulate and change the value of the variable that's created it. Okay? And the procedure is a structured procedure. It has a sub-procedure in it. What I see is what happens at the level of the procedure itself. So this is a little program which is there to design windmills, sails of windmills, but it's not a ready-made program, it's a half-baked program. And this is halfway, it's not finished, as Mitch was saying yesterday. So it's halfway, and what we're giving in the book is something that somebody has not finished yet. At another page of the same book, we have another widget. We have this, we have a model of the windmill here, and we can get the kids to try and build something that looks like the model. By building different areas and trying to look at it from different points of view. So it's another functionality. And in the same thing, we have this bad copy of Cadbury and Sketchpad, which is called GeoGebra, but it's very popular around Europe at least. And we have a little model, which is not a constructionist model, it's something you could see in an interactive book, but it can still be there in a constructionist book. Nobody says that it shouldn't. So this is point A moving around, and I can see the sine and the cosine as it pans out. And finally, another page of the book is about the productivity ratio of the windmill. As time goes by, I can see my two, how do you call it, warehouses filling up. And if I change parameters, If I make it larger, I can see that it works better because it fills up quicker. Or if I change the number of cells, I can see what proportion it has. And then I can also, if I want, change the shape of the warehouse and work with the rules that tell me how it gets filled in during the rotation of the windmill. So that's a little perusal of one C-book unit, which we call windmills, and how it helps you to rethink about what mathematics can be in windmills from different points of view. And just to look at the collaborative workspace, this is the literal workspace. It's one of the two, because there wasn't enough space, of the COI, the community of interest, as it was working. We have this little tool that helps you go through the map, and we have adornments. You can take a part of the tree of the map and collapse it into some theme, so you can get a sense of the huge space of the discussion. You have the different kinds of discussions, and you have the capability that there's an attachment in each. And there's a lot of text here and a lot of things to analyze about the issues that our members, our COI members, were discussing about the C-book unit. So, time? A couple of critical episodes while this thing was going on. In the windmill, by the way, the members of the COI members from Greece were computer scientists, they were mathematics educators, there were math educators who were also developers, secondary developers with TurtleWorks or GeorgiaGraph or things like that. But we also had people from engineering education, from environmental education, and they were getting together to discuss the windmill and another C-book unit we were building. The windmill was about the mathematics that our members thought were interesting in the idea of windmill was this shape of the sails, the symmetry by rotation, trigonometric functions, productivity ratios, 3D modeling of structure. It could have been other mathematics, or another C-book unit around the windmills could produce other things. And their strategies were at different levels, and at the beginning they didn't realize that they were at different levels. So it came up through the discussion, the level of starting from designing a widget instance, to the level of thinking about that specific page, the level of thinking about the whole C-book unit, to make sense of how the scope and sequence, the narrative, the story, and how the widgets fall into the story. So where do you start from, and how do you design these things? And as the discussion, as the work progressed, these things came up more and more as problematic and as things to consider. There wasn't a solution of the best method, start from the top or start from the bottom, but it was something that was new, and it really jolted the COI members on, first of all, on how to include engineering and the coding element and integrate it with mathematical concepts. Secondly, how to allow for and promote unpredictable student activity and personalized creative constructions with the half-baked instances that were in the C-book. How to embed diverse mathematical ideas organized in ways not found in standard curricula. There was another C-book unit which we called Bike in the City. Of course, it's the environmentalists who were, had a big say in that, where there was a large plethora of ideas and tensions. The mathematics that was conceived in there was about orientation, it was about cartography, distances, charting itineraries, programming them, thinking about the shortest route. What was interesting there was that the members of the COI were discussing issues by exchanging artifacts that they had developed. So we had a member of the COI saying, how about this idea? And posting an artifact that they had developed to express the idea. And very often we had objections. So many of these artifacts got thrown away, but it didn't matter. There was a lot of productivity and expressing of things together with developing of artifacts. So after our first year in MC Square, Of course, what happens in these projects is that you have many more questions than what you began with, because you realize that you got yourself into an issue which looked very cute and manageable a year ago, but now you really have to do the work and to think more deeply. But first of all, it's how do we think of a book as a living document for the reader? Okay, Luc Truche discussed the idea of resources as living documents for teachers. But now constructionist books change, and readers make things of them. So how do you write a book which is going to become a living document for a reader? Every time they read it, they construct a different thing. Secondly, the need for creativity in designing constructionist books to promote creativity in their readers. Well, is there such a thing as a constructionist book, to come back to Ivan's question yesterday? Can it be designed, and what does it need to have in it? And is it worthwhile? I mean, when we have all these other technologies, is the idea of book dying anyway? So why engage in this? Or is it going to preserve? We need diverse views and methods to integrate these ideas. It's not something that will come up from regurgitating old e-book and book productions and just putting in an essence of constructionism. It's rethinking the idea of book altogether. We need to have information on what readers do with them to help us think on how to design. And also, C-book units start to become boundary objects themselves in total. So we have synthetic boundary objects that have boundary objects inside them. And you need to have this kind of unit as something over which the diverse people discuss and make sense of this enterprise. So thank you. These are 3 places you can find stuff about the projects I told you. It's the 3rd one, linked to our lab. And it's the project website, and you can click on to the C-book unit as a guest and have a look at some of the C-book units that are in there. Oh, and the flyer, so some people wait and leave the flyer somewhere outside the mic.